Once you get in a zone, it's kind of like you're in a zone, and there's nothing that can really phase you.
Just being in that zone.
You know he's in the zone. He's making checks.
I just felt like I was in the zone.
Man, I was in the zone that night.
I was in the zone.
You definitely be in the zone.
Just in the zone.
I do feel like I'm in the zone right now, but I feel like we are in the zone.
Welcome to the Zone. I'm your host, Brian, and we are officially 1 week from the NBA draft. And as a Wizards fan, this is a fun, exciting time, but as the days dwindle down, the uncertainty of who the heck is being called first next Tuesday rises, especially after the Darren Peterson news that broke just a few days ago coming out from his camp about his pre-draft workouts. So it's a little confusing, adds a little bit more of a wrinkle into this prospect prediction, into this draft prediction, but nonetheless makes it more exciting. And that's why we watch. That's why we make mock drafts. That's why we make predictions. But to start off, I just want to put in a little bit of a recap of like the last month or so. Very quick. Essentially, May 14th, May 10th, I forget exactly when, but it was about mid-May, the NBA draft lottery took place. The Wizards came out victorious. They got the number 1 pick for the first time in 16 years when they selected John Wall back in 2010. So then the ball was put exactly in Washington's court. They have the next move, which is, like I said, next Tuesday, and that is to be selecting who they want at number 1. However, the pick isn't just as easy as, okay, pick your prospect. Not only are there multiple prospects barring or like arguing and kind of fighting for that number 1 spot, but there is also rumors of trades, of not staying at the number 1 pick in the draft. So now Washington has a decision. The Wizards have this decision of, do they stick and pick and choose the top player on their board, or do they trade that pick away and try to build and gain more assets for the future to try and basically bring in more ammunition that they can maybe use in later trades or obviously in future drafts. So those are the two options they have. And personally, as a fan, as a viewer, I think they should stick and pick. A lot of people have a rumor, especially over the last 2 or 3 weeks. It's kind of calmed down now recently, but about 2 or 3 weeks ago, right after the draft, a lot of people had said the Wizards should trade out of the top 4. I mean, even arguably out of the top 4. Some say they should trade down into later portions of the top 4. So maybe pick 2, pick 3, or pick 4. But there have been a lot of talks about trades, whether it's to the Bucks at number 10 for Giannis, or it's to the Jazz for number 2 if they, like another prospect, or if it's to the Grizzlies at number 3 for another prospect. Either way, there have been a lot of talks. Personally, after looking at everything, I just don't think a trade is really necessary. In my opinion, I think they shouldn't trade out of the top 2. That's the only trade I'd even consider, is going down to Utah at number 2, but there'd have to be certain circumstances that the Wizards match in order to go down 1 spot. Even if it is just 1 spot, there'd have to be circumstances they match. And the biggest one is who they like at number 1. You do not trade down if you like a player more. So for example, because I know this is going to make a little bit of no sense, but AJ DeBonsta is the number 1 prospect right now. He is the favorite to be at number 1. And through his time coming up, go all the way back to his senior year in high school, the Jazz have invested, the owner of the Jazz, the Utah Jazz, have invested into him. They paid him to come over to Utah Prep his senior year of high school, and then paid him to attend BYU, which I believe the Utah Jazz owner also has a stake in, or something to that matter, of BYU. He has some type of input into the BYU basketball program and the university itself. So he had basically for 2 years kind of groomed AJ DeBonsta and been in his ear to try and bring him to Utah with the hope of getting the first overall pick. Unfortunately, also slightly fortunately, the Jazz got the number 2 pick. So they can still get a top prospect, but they can't just willingly pick whatever prospect there is, because they have to pick whoever the Wizards don't pick. And the Wizards right now are favored to pick DeBonsta. So there are rumors of the Jazz wanting to give a haul, whether that be Ace Bailey, whether that be 3, 4 first-round picks, any other young prospects, in addition to the number 2 pick, to the Wizards to select the person that their owner has been dying to grow, has been dying to select and bring in to the Utah culture. So it is a little bit of that. That is really the only way I would trade down is if the Wizards have Darren Peterson at as their number one prospect, and the Jazz are willing to give a haul to go up to number one. That is the only way I would drop to number two. Because if you like Dembélé more, if the Wizards are coming in and they're like, you know what, we like Dembélé more than Peterson, however, we can get more assets if we drop down, I don't think that's a smart move, personally. I think you have to pick whoever you like best. That is how you should attack a draft, especially at the number one spot. Pick who you fell in love with. Don't pick because it might be analytically better to go with the second overall person and gain more assets. You have enough assets right now. You're trying to move, and even Michael Winger, the president of the Wizards, and even Will Dawkins, the GM of the Wizards, have come out and said that they're trying to move to a new era of Wizards basketball. They have lost for the 2 years so far, or I guess technically now 3 years so far, that the new front office has been in. That's Will Dawkins and Michael Winger since 2023. And 2 years prior to that, with the old front office. So for 5 straight years, they have been tanking, losing. They have had, I think, a total of 58 wins or something ridiculous in the last 3 years combined. They have been in that tanking era for a while. They've essentially made a home in the tanking area. They have come out saying that they want to move into a new era of contention. It's why they traded for Trae Young. It's why they traded for Anthony Davis. They want to move in to a winning, competitive franchise that is going to try and compete to win a championship. Will that championship be next year? Most likely not. Will it be in the next 2-3 years? Probably not, because you have so many young people, young players that need to develop and evolve. But nonetheless, they want to move into that next phase of the rebuild, which their ultimate goal in this rebuild is to create a team that will consistently compete year after year after year for an NBA championship. So with all of that said, I think the biggest thing you can do here is stick and pick. Stick and pick between your top 2 targets, which have been reported out as Darren Peterson, the guard from Kansas, and AJ Dembélé, the forward from BYU. Those are your top 2. Those are the top 2 that the Wizards apparently are looking at. They're the only 2 in contention right now for number 1. There were rumors about Cam Boozer, the Duke forward, coming in at number 1 as a dark horse. Even Caleb Wilson, the UNC forward, who is right now projected to be at the Bulls at pick number 4. Even he, as a dark horse candidate, way earlier off, I think it was like the week right after the draft, was even considered a top pick at one point. But both of them have kind of been separated from the group, as Dembélé and Peterson have just elevated their stock so much. So it really just does come down to, who do you like better? Is it Peterson or is it Dembélé? And the recent news coming out a few days ago, which has really thrown this whole prospect, this whole prediction, this whole mock draft in a wrench, is the fact that Peterson's camp said that Peterson will not be working out for anyone else outside of the Washington Wizards. So what does that mean? Basically, he will not be meeting or working out, as in other words, doing drills, showing them basically how his physicals are outside of just what the paperwork says. So not seeing them in person for any team other than the Washington Wizards. And the reason behind doing this, the reason behind canceling all of the other workouts and visits, is the fact that his camp believes he will be number 1 and believes he should be number 1. He should be picked number 1. The problem that this shows, the problem that this kind of contradicts, is the fact that Dembélé's group also believes he will not only go, but he should be number 1 in this draft. So now you have 2 different prospects who have already been compared over and over for years as who's the best of the 2, are once again in a prospect with the Wizards, both thinking that they're going to be drafted to Washington. So that's where all of this kind of comes into a cloudy haze, where no one really knows how the Wizards are going to do, because the Wizards have done so well in keeping their lips sealed. They've done so well in not leaking out any information. Now, granted, camps are going to say things because they either want to have, granted, they're also shown by agents, so they want their prospects' draft stock to increase, because that means either more money or more value, whether it's now or later down the road. So obviously, the agent's going to come out and say, yeah, a team told us that, we're going to go number 1. And then another one's going to come out and say, hey, they told us too that we're also going to go number 1. And it's to try and raise that stock and raise the view of what the NBA should be viewing that player as. The NBA should be seeing Peterson as the number 1 prospect. The NBA should be seeing Dembélé as the number 1 prospect. So it is a lot of confusion, a lot of back and forth. When I'm looking at this, and I look at both of these prospects, my prediction and my opinion are the exact same. I think next Tuesday, the number one player coming out, being picked first in this draft for the 2026 by the Washington Wizards, because I don't think they're going to trade the pick. It's going to be Washington Wizards. The first player being called will be AJ DeBonsta. I think that BYU forward, a phenomenal player, phenomenal athlete. I think he will be the number one pick. He will be the Wizards' new face of the franchise. That is the guy that I want. That is the guy that I think will be called. And I think it for a few reasons. The first one is the fact that he is probably one of the safer bets when you go and look at the top 4 prospects. That's Caleb Wilson, Cam Boozer, Darren Peterson, and AJ DeBonsta. When looking at Peterson and DeBonsta, I think DeBonsta is the safer pick, mainly for his medical records. Darren Peterson, his freshman year, as elite of a playmaker as he was, as elite of a player as he was, as superstar potential that he has, as much of it as he has, his biggest issue was the fact that he couldn't stay on the court. Out of, I think, 36 games, I believe is what they play in college, he was only able to play in 24, averaging just under 21 minutes per game. And as good of his three-point shot was at 38%, which is well above average for a guard, when you see all of the numbers, his shot, his ability to attack the rim, his ability to score on all 3 levels, his defensive ability as well, averaging over 2 stocks, that's steal and blocks, a game. He had so much promise, so much talent. The problem was that he dealt with cramps. Huge. This isn't like I'm Charlie Horse or like something like that. This is a true cramp that his camp has come out saying that it's due to creatine powder or like a high dosage of creatine. But those cramps, along with a hamstring, a quad, and an ankle injury, all really derailed his minutes and his time and his usage in Kansas. So that's like the biggest question that floats around Darren Peterson. If he didn't have that issue in college, he probably would be very close to the unanimous number 1 prospect. But since all of these medicals come out, it does bring up a yellow flag. Now, there are reports that the NBA doesn't, or NBA teams don't really look at that. They aren't really caring about that as much because they just do equate it to or show it as it's just creatine misuse, a high dosage of creatine. But nonetheless, they are there and they are certain. You can't just fully bypass it, but you do have to acknowledge that there are those concerns. For DeBonsta, he played 30, I think he started 35 of 36 games or played all 36. I can't remember if one of them he just didn't start. But either way, he was there for the entire season and ended up his freshman year leading the nation, not just freshman, leading the nation with 25.5 points per game. He was there every game. He showed out every game, and he was the engine behind that BYU offense. I believe there was a stat that came out that said that he had 33%. He was the one that led 33% of BYU's offensive drives or dribbles or construction throughout the season. That was him, 33% of it. That is an insane amount for one player of a basketball team. Now, the downside for DeBonsta, when you're comparing him to Peterson, is that his defensive side, the defense that he brings, isn't quite up to par for his size. It's very pedestrian. It's very minimal compared to his measurements. With Peterson, he already has that defensive upside. Like I said, 2 stocks per game, over 2 stocks per game. That's where it kind of goes back and forth. Do you want the possible complete combo guard package with Darren Peterson, however, risking that he may or may not have injury issues? Or do you want to go with DeBonsta, who so far in his young career hasn't had injury issues, but still needs a little bit more refinement on the defensive side of the ball to become that elite 2-way player? With that being said, I think it's much easier to build the defensive side of a ball than try and trust a player who has medical issues. So for me, I lean towards DeBonsta. I also think DeBonsta fits the Wizards team a little better than Darren Peterson would. As much as I like Peterson and as much as of a talent he would be, and as okay as I would be, or even excited as I would be if the Wizards drafted Peterson number 1, I just think his fit makes the guard room a little too cramped. A lot of people talk about DeBonsta going to the Wizards and then he's going to kind of stunt Keyshawn George's growth. But if the Wizards were to take Peterson, he would end up not only stunting Trey Johnson's growth, who they picked at 6 last year, he would also be stunting Bub Carrington and a few other players that could be coming in. Bylaw would have to be minutes. It's not like they can't get by with it. They could try and find lineups and rearrange how you can play Peterson, Trey, or whoever else you want to kind of mix and match to put them on the court. It just seems almost too much of an overload of small guards, because at that point you're playing 3 guards that are either 6'6" or smaller, rather than having Dembánsta, who can play a guard position but also play all the way up to the 4 as being a 6'10" forward. So for me, the versatility that Dembánsta brings in the lineup rotation is a lot better and a lot easier to manage than trying to throw in a 6'6" guard in Darren Peterson, no matter what talent he brings. So for that reason, I do lean more towards Dembánsta. I also just love Dembánsta's energy. The dude shows up in suits every meeting. He shows up with an attitude. He already has the media train, the PR training, and the confidence of a number 1 pick, of a franchise guy. Peterson has the confidence as a player. I'm talking about when you come out and you need a guy that can be necessarily marketable, that can be the guy that when you send him out on, like, let's say a press tour, or you send him out to the media, you know he's going to not only talk the team well, he's going to talk himself well, he's going to talk his teammates well, and he's going to look presentable like the franchise itself. To me, that is Dembánsta. Dembánsta shows that perfectly. Peterson, as good of a player as he is, and as much as I think he will be good as a franchise player, I don't know if he's going to be the franchise guy. I think he's going to fit perfectly in Utah. I think he's going to be great in Utah, right next to Keontae George, right next to Ace Bailey, Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson, Walker Kessler, as long as he signs his extension in there. Everything else, he's going to fit perfectly. I just think with the Wizards, you're looking more for a guy that's going to be the face of the franchise, that you can rely on as the guy that you need, that the guy that you can build on for the future. And Dembánsta fits that role better. And maybe that's just a gut feeling from me. Maybe that's not based solely on stats as much as it's just when watching tape, when seeing how he talks, when he interviews, everything else. He just fits that mold better, in my opinion, when I watch him. I just have a better feeling when I watch Dembánsta when leading a franchise than anything else. That is not to say, again, that is not to say that Darren Peterson is a talent. I just believe in Dembánsta as a better prospect. So there is a lot going on. We will never know the full extent of what the Wizards are thinking until probably after the draft even happens. Then we might get like an insight into their process, into what they looked at, how they graded prospects. But until then, it's just really, it's what do you think? You know, get as much film as you can get, watch as many highlights as you can get, watch as much tape as you can get, and just try and make the best educated guess you can, or just make your own personal opinion of who you like better. But until then, until next Tuesday, it's just going to be a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors. You're probably going to start seeing names get thrown out there. I know Trae Young's been thrown out in trade rumors. Anthony Davis has been thrown out in trade rumors. There are a lot of people that are going to be thrown out. A lot of players are going to be thrown around in these trades, in these rumors of who likes what, who likes this, who's going to work out here, who's going to work out there, what prospect is liked the most by which teams. But until next Tuesday, we will not have any definitive answers, which makes this season fun. It makes this offseason, this section of the offseason so exciting, is that you don't know the answer and you can speculate and fantasize about this player being introduced in this lineup or this player being introduced in that lineup. And that's why I love it so much. And I think that's why you guys should enjoy it. And I can't wait till next Tuesday. So until next time, I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you next time on In the Zone.